Why would God have created a clitoris that has no other purpose than to give us this extreme pleasure? It's because we as women, our bodies and our whole systems operate off of pleasure. The less pleasure you have in your life, the less homeostasis you're going to experience in your physical body. And so the more pleasure that we're actually bringing in, the more oxytocin we're feeding our body self-heals. We're all self-healing, the human body is self-healing. If you give it the right things, it will fix itself.
Welcome, tribe. I'm Mayah Rose.
And I'm Gerald Rogers. We're about to embark on another mind-expanding episode where we dive deep into the realms of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
This is a transformational experience of healing, manifestation, increased clarity, flow, and alignment.
So join us on this sacred journey as we receive the codes of transformation from scientists and psychonauts, shamans, tantra masters, mystics, and more.
Together, we'll unravel the secrets of plant medicine, sex magic, and other tools to tap into higher states of consciousness.
So why are we here? To answer the call, to share our passions, and to be advocates for alternative healing.
So get ready for a ride that transcends the ordinary and leads you to the extraordinary, because living a legendary life is not just a choice.
It's a sacred adventure.
Welcome, tribe and family, back to Psychedelics, Sex, and the Superconscious. And I am just really excited about our conversation today with a dear friend of mine and somebody who has impacted my life. And just get ready, because this is going to be a really juicy conversation. You're probably going to want to take a lot of notes, or there might be some times you want to pause and just feel into the energy of it. But today I have my dear sister, Kasia Love Li, and I'm going to read her bio because this deserves to be read. So Kasia Love Li, better known as Love, appropriate name for you, is a goddess worship practitioner, a couples pleasure and partnership mentor, and a speaker who has been blessed to transform her unsatisfied and unwilling relationship on the brink of divorce to a passionate, peaceful, and playful love affair. Today, she teaches the art of erotic worship and mentors couples to achieve their desired relationship outcomes. An embodied, confident masculine who feels like a champion in a safe, seen, heard, and fully alive feminine freedom. She also provides devotional body worship experiences. I've experienced this. We'll talk about that more in the show. For women, which balances hormones, regulates the nervous system, awakens erotic joy, ignites creativity, and reconnects them to their self-worth. And here's a fun fact about Love. She's in creative constant pursuit of change and has rocked 20 different hair colors to spark new experiences in life. And Love, I've experienced several of these hair colors on you, and you do rock it. So I love that. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, especially with you, Mayah Rose.
Oh, thank you. And I would love to just start today by having you share a little bit of your story and how you got into this.
Absolutely. Well, my story of how I got into this started really early in my sexual journey, actually, because it took me years. It took me a decade to have my first orgasm, and I was in constant pursuit of it. I finally did figure out the blockages and things that had prevented me from doing that, but I also realized that a part of it was my hormonal dysregulation. I have a pituitary cyst, which makes me very blessed to have hormonal irregularities. And I've experienced something equivalent to a menopause, a full hormonal bottom out, on 5 separate occasions. One of those occasions had me pick up the book, Secret Pleasures of Menopause by Christine Northrup. And in her book, she described these practices, these self-devotional worship practices. And she expressed that if you were consistent with this, 4 to 6 weeks for a few hours once a week, you could regulate all your own hormones and completely bypass any experience of menopause. And so, of course, I had to do this, and I did it. And it took me 6 weeks, 6 weeks to get my cortisol back from dangerously low. I was like 95 pounds, working out at the gym 6 days a week and could not put muscle on, and eating 6 times a day because I thought it was like something with my blood sugar. Anyways, So it was fascinating. In 6 weeks, I got all my levels up. I felt radiant. I felt like this next level vitality. And then I would, in that state, in that beautiful state, I would meet my husband for the first time and we would start our relationship. And a little bit more to that story, as our relationship progressed, it was such a beautiful relationship. And historically, as so many of us out there, having relationship traumas and parental traumas, everything was perfect until that first moment, first rupture in my relationship, which was actually, it was a sexual rejection, which for me was like, oh man, like that was the biggest pain that I could possibly experience in my life. And in that moment, I made up so many stories about myself and about our relationship. Foundationally, right after that, if I'm recalling my behaviors, that would have been the first moment that started a pattern that would create so much distance and so much unwillingness in the relationship with my husband over the course of 6 years that finally I felt like, I don't think we're meant to be together. I love you so much. And I want you to be with somebody who is so aligned. And that can't be me. Like, I feel like it can't be me because you're not showing up the way that I really want.
I want to pause here for just a moment, actually, and first acknowledge some things that are coming up for me. I think that there's a lot of women out there that actually struggle in having orgasm. And I think the immediate thing is like, what's wrong with me? Is there some different way that I should be thinking, or something other than there could actually be physically something impacting your body or blocking your body's ability to receive pleasure? And for you, it was that cyst. But what I found so fascinating in your story, just to rewind back to this, is you actually used natural ways, like the ways to awaken your body, to feel like you are worshiping your body, to regulate your hormones and get back to that level where you felt not only good in your body so you could receive pleasure, but also more healthy. And I just want to state this again, because ladies, listen carefully. You can use orgasm to be healthier, to regulate your body. And for those of you that are getting close to perimenopause or maybe in menopause, there's actually ways to reduce the symptoms that you may be experiencing if you're willing to engage in some of these pleasure or self-worship practices. So first of all, I just want to point that out, and I want to dive deeper into that a little bit later. But this is fascinating, and I think every single woman needs to hear this and needs to know this. And I think there's so much more. I mean, obviously, physically, things can happen when you worship your body and your hormones can regulate. But just real quickly, could you speak to what happened to you mentally and emotionally as you started engaging in even these self-worship practices?
You know what? It's really fascinating that you asked that question. At first, I was overcome by my programming and my religious indoctrination, and just kind of like maybe some of the programming I've picked up from Tele-Latina Network or whatever I was watching as a young person on TV. Because the first things that came up for me was, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? A man should be doing this for you. And I was like, wow, what a fascinating thing to observe in my mind. And I chose to push through anyway. I was like, no, I get to do this for myself. And that came up from this place of feeling like self-touch was bad and wrong, or like, fearing, having this need from a really, really early age, and fearing like I didn't have a lock on my door. And if somebody walked in, like, oh no, that would be so terrible. And so that's how my journey started with all of this noise about why I shouldn't have to be doing this, or why this is like somehow beneath me. When in reality, I was like, wow, this is wild that my mind is even going here. Because in my forefront, in my conscious mind, I was like, no, sexual liberation, let's go. Like, masturbation is necessary, key forms of everything. So as I started to unwind that was where I started to move from, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, to like, wow, you're so gorgeous and you're so beautiful. And like, I can't believe that I can feel these levels of sensation. It was a learning to really take certain types of sensation and allow them to compound with different ones. And so, talking about my husband, in my relationship, I didn't know at the beginning for the first 6 years how to ask for what I wanted and how to ask for what I wanted in words that he would appreciate, understand, and be excited to like really jump into giving me these desires that I had. Instead, and I think a lot of women do this, and it's not to say that it's bad and wrong or like shame on you. It's just to say this is how we've been programmed to experience our partners. If they don't give us something, we begin to complain about the lack thereof. And I know, Mayah Rose, you are one person who never done that. Like you are, wow, ever since I've met you, I was like, this is definitely, something that I need to implement, because so much of my journey has really happened since the moments that I've met you, of course. And so I went from this complainer that, oh, you're not doing this or you're not doing that, to, hey, when you touch me like this and you do that, it excites me in all these different ways. And it gives me this experience. It provides me this experience, which would then my husband hears and he's like, ooh, I want to do these great things for you. I want to make you feel all these great ways. It's like, you're giving me a roadmap. Fantastic. Let me use it. And that was really what had taken us from kind of like, even people who are having good sex, there's a next level. And as I continue to uncover all of these next levels, I'm compounding now like a touch orgasm followed by an energetic orgasm, followed by a clitoral orgasm, followed by like a G-spot orgasm, and then like culminating into a full body explosion. I have not yet reached cosmic states of incapacitation. However, this experience, and I'm realizing that it's not even that difficult. It does require this beautiful level of communication with your partner. It requires this level of devotion, this level of learning how to worship and what touching the body feels like in the sense of worship versus just going through the acts. And so that's what I'm really excited for everybody to experience. For me, it was so important because of the cyst in my brain that when I'm stressed out gets enlarged and then does some things to my body. Sustainable management of my hormones for the rest of my life cannot be found in supplementation, like is not going to be found, in a doctor or anybody else. And even the times I have gone that route, spent thousands of dollars on supplementation and supplementing, within 6 months of stopping the supplementation, I was back if I wasn't doing the practices. If I was disconnected from what I wanted to do in my life and I wasn't, when like I'm in the depressions or in the difficulties of life, they were impacting my hormones so greatly that only this type of work, whether my husband's worshiping me or I'm doing a self-worship practice, the consistency of this practice is what gives me results, consistent results. And it's fantastic. And I want that for every woman that I meet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a mic drop moment right here. Hey, listen up. Mic drop, people. The best prescription for being able to regulate your hormones is, drumroll, worship. Oh my God, find this so much. Like, love, I think what you're doing is so important. And I want to just address, first of all, that we are rewriting deep programming and a lot of belief system religiously, culturally. I mean, for years, for millennia, we've been taught that it's not okay to provide pleasure for ourselves. But if we don't know our own bodies, how can we help our partners know our bodies? If we aren't able to know what it feels like to be worshiped, how can we actually allow ourselves to feel worthy of receiving things in our life? And I think that's one of the beautiful things of this wonder of worship that you're teaching about. And these old programs, they run deep. And I so resonate with what you were saying. Growing up in a very conservative area of the country, conservative household, very religious, it was like, this is a sin. It is a sin to give yourself pleasure. This is not okay. This is something that's bad. And within that, I think I took on this idea that sex was bad, that being worshiped was bad, that feeling pleasure was somehow evil or wrong, and I felt guilt and shame around it. And the interesting thing that I find is feeling guilt and shame, it actually stimulates some of those hormones and those things that we don't want in our body. And so before we go into, and I really want to get into the whole dynamic with couples and how you teach couples art of worship. But before we do that, I just want to know, like, what are your tips for getting over that? Because if there's somebody listening to this and they think, wow, I really want to be able to experience more pleasure. I want to be able to use this technique, my own body, to be able to regulate my hormones. What would be your tips on how to really be able to receive that? First from yourself, but then also from your partner.
Absolutely. Well, first, you do want to start off with yourself because you want to go slow and you want to allow yourself the time and experience first to identify like what kind of erotic person are you? So I'm predominantly sensual energetic. And so I start with energetic work. I start, how do I bring energy into my body? And then I go into the sensual practices of self-touch. And this is not a vaginal work. Like it's at the end of the day, like right at the end, you get there, but it's really about the full body. And as you start to touch your body, right, you're observing what's happening in the mind. And upon those observations, you're simply allowing them to transpire, to be there. Like, I love this person that felt the need to have this experience or have this thought process because at one point it protected you. Like, I honor that. And I'm choosing to let you go. And I'm choosing to carry on. So when those thoughts or patterns come in that have you wanting to pump the brakes, it's important to observe them, to pay gratitude to them because they were there for a reason, and then choose something different and choose to keep going. And so I know that, when it was the most difficult for me, when I was like, I know that I need to do this work because my hormones are so bad, but I still couldn't push myself. What I found to be really helpful is creating a recording for myself. And I'll do this professionally for public purchase shortly, but create a recording that guides you through the basis of the steps and like, this is what I want you to do next. And consider this thing, like having an audio recording of your own voice guiding you through a practice like this is so beautiful, to listen to you like, okay, I can do this. Because at the beginning, for some women, right? For some women, it could become very difficult. And then for others, it'll be like, oh, yeah, let's go. I'm ready, But we do have these two different groups of people. And I want both of them to experience this. And so for
Yeah.
those who are in resistance, it's really about how do I create these kind of systems that can help me push through when my mind wants to tell me to stop. The only thing that you should really consider is when you're like really to actually stop is once you start going down to the labia and to the vagina, if you get a really big hit of like, this is too much, I need you to stop, then stop. Because that's your yoni communicating to you that there's something left unprocessed and that she would like for you to go slow. Perhaps give her that slowness and that respect that you didn't have once upon a time because of like a sexual trauma or something like that, right? Because that has also occurred to me. I had sexual traumas growing up, and because of those sexual traumas, they had left literal like knots on the inside of my vaginal walls. And when I started doing work, they like going into the yoni work, and eventually I would do something called yoni mapping to discover like what is happening on the inside. The first few times I really did hear like, please stop. Like stop. And then I did. And I honored that. Like this is not a process that you have to go straight to the end and go for gold. This is something that builds. And it's not about orgasm. It's about the pleasure you experience in your whole body from head to toe. As a sensual, especially as a sensual energetic, which is Jaya's erotic blueprints. Please go take the test, everybody, because I feel everybody should know what their erotic blueprint is. As a sensual woman, as a sensual being, we like to be touched from head to toe. And if you don't engage all of those aspects of us, then some part of us is not fully in. And therefore, slightly disconnected from the experience.
I love that. When you were talking about that, I just felt really good in my body. There was something that felt really good about honoring, going slow. I think so often the programming we talked about, well, programming is if you are going to enter a sexual experience, you're like going right there, and this is the only way to receive pleasure, and this is how you're worshipped, and this is what it means to be sexual, is to be touching yourself in that area. And what I'm hearing you say is that these self-worship sessions are worshiping your head, your feet, your legs, your arms, your breasts, your back, your stomach, like all parts of your body. And one of the things that I noticed for me when I first started self-worshiping is there were certain areas that I felt really ashamed about. And there were certain areas that I felt like I didn't deserve to be worshiped. I had nursed 4 children. And when I first started doing self-worship, I felt like my breasts were just super saggy, right? And I was like, oh, every time I looked in the mirror, I would feel ashamed, or I'd want to hide, or I'd be like, oh, those ugly things or whatever, I'm not as perky as I used to be. But one of the things that I found is as I gave love to the parts of my body that I had spent years shaming and making wrong and being disgusted by, there was this part of me that just felt like she could cry. I think I did cry a couple of times of like, I've just been waiting. I've been waiting to feel honored. I've been waiting to feel loved, and I've been waiting to feel worshiped. So I'd love for you just to describe, if somebody's wanting to experience a self-worship session, like, where do you start? Do you start in a certain place? Is there a certain technique that you use? How would this look for somebody that's just getting started?
Absolutely. So first, you want to create a really sensual kind of environment for yourself where you feel very comfortable, where nobody is going to be interrupting you. Set and setting. You want the ambiance, because this, in your own self-worship practice, this is about how much effort are you willing to put into yourself. Light those candles, have that lighting, have some sort of scent so that you have all of your senses ignited. Have a mirror handy, right? Like just kind of the right lighting, lowish kind of lighting. Create or curate or find. I have some playlists, have a beautiful playlist that allows you to go through a journey from start to finish. Perhaps it starts really slow and then it kind of picks up. And so they can vary as to anything that really brings you a lot of pleasure. But oftentimes my self-worship practices start with an energetic practice. So I'll lay some crystals on my body, walk through a guided meditation where I'm visualizing the energy from like eternal God source energy coming into my body. And sometimes I even will extend my hand up into the air and envision like eternal life force energy coming into my body. And as it's filling me up, then I'll go into the next phase. And the next phase is like your favorite oil, anointing oil, but like, or coconut oil or something that really enriches the skin. And you're going to start slowly putting the oil all over your body while watching yourself in the mirror. Like, allow yourself to witness yourself, touch yourself slowly. The slower, the better, ladies. And for men out there, the slower, the better. Because it really has you present every single part. And as you're looking down at your feet or you're looking down at your legs, consider the gratitude you have for that area of your body, for its function, for what it does for you. For like my feet, these are the feet that carry me through life every single day. They're literally walking me forward through life every single day. The strength of my muscles. Consider all the different parts of you and what it does, and either out loud or in your mind, give gratitude to those parts of you. Give gratitude to the parts of you that you haven't loved in all this time, but you're committed to loving, right? Like, I'm committed to loving you. I don't love you right now, maybe, but I'm committed to loving you. And this is my work, to commit to loving you. And then I would go and I would allow myself to lay down and kind of like, or go into a dance and then lay down. Anything that really inspires you and brings up that energy, brings up that pleasure. This is an experience that could be an hour long. It could be 3 hours long. It could be 4 hours long. the longer you are in one of these experiences, whether you're touching yourself and you can play with the different senses, right? Or like different pressures, different firmnesses. You can scratch your body with your nails. You can use different props. You can use silks, anything to really bring that experience of sensory change to your body before you work on your breast and then go down into your labia and your vagina. And then with the labial work on the inside of the thighs, like just go slow and make sure to just see and experience all of it. This is not one of those experiences where you're going straight for the clitoris. It's unnecessary. Like, if at the end of the journey you're like, absolutely, I'm so hot and bothered, I really need an orgasm, go for it. Go for it. But you don't want to rush there. This is about allowing. Fun thing about the clitoris is that the nerve endings are connected throughout your whole body. Every single erogenous zone on your body is sending minor signals to your clitoris, allowing your clitoris to engorge. So if you're in this process of like 1 hour or 2 hours, allowing your clitoris to just continuously engorge in this process, your final hurrah really is something like magnificent. It's outside of a standard clitoral orgasm, in my opinion. And so that's kind of like what they look like for me. Definitely, there's a lot of focus on using words of appreciation, because in this space, and actually you've taught this so much, that once you're in this pleasure space, your brain becomes more neuroplastic. And once your brain is in this neuroplastic place, you're literally inviting a new program, a new belief system. So allow yourself the opportunity to do that.
I love that. This is making me excited to go experience and create my own time to do this. And this is what I think is so huge about this too. I even noticed as you were talking, you said, 1 or 2 hour session, 3 or 4 hour. I'm like, oh, do I really have the time? But that's the whole point, is how often do we make that time for other people, but we don't give that time to ourselves. And I just feel, even you talking about that and thinking about having that session for myself, which I haven't had in a while, I just imagine this, my bucket filling up and coming from this place of being so full that it's like, I don't need anything outside of myself. I may want things, I may desire things. And from that space of like the full bucket, I get to attract things into my life. I get to feel worthy and whole and worshiped. And what's so powerful is that we have the power to give this to ourselves. And I love what you said about this is when the brain is in the most receptive state. This is when we get to hypnotize ourselves. And how long have we hypnotized ourselves by looking in the mirror and saying, oh, I'm ugly, or oh, that stretch mark, or oh, that part's, oh, that cellulite right there, oh, that whatever it is. But what if in this moment of pleasure, we could reprogram ourselves to feel like we're worthy of being worshiped? So, and I loved how you described that. That was amazing. And if there's anybody listening that's not wanting to go create this for themselves right now, I would be surprised, because that is amazing. And one of the things that I want to mention, and as we move into some of the partner work, I actually got to experience this from you. So you give these worship sessions, or help women in these worship sessions understand what it feels like to be worshiped, but also so they can help their partner understand what it feels like for them to be worshiped. So when we had our session, it was really beautiful, because I was in this state of surrender and you were in the state of like, this is what it would look like or feel like to be worshiped. And I was able to then not only have the codes of like receiving that, of being more open to receiving being worshiped, but then also bring that into my practice with my husband. I was able to be the worshiper and kind of step into this role of like, okay, now I'm going to rub your feet. I'm going to speak all these amazing things that I love about your feet and your legs, and move my body in a certain way to where he felt worshiped. And then from those codes, then he was able to give that to me. And then I was able to feel worship. So, and what that did for us was it just allowed a deepening of our relationship and more presence. So I think this is a code not only for us to understand as individuals, but this is something that we can bring into our partnerships. And this is essential for really experiencing radical intimacy, that space where we're allowing ourselves to be worshipped, or we're fully focusing on our attention on our partner and allowing them to be worshipped. But before we get into the how to do that, I want to go back to your story, because you said that when you were, married to your husband, you kind of went through this honeymoon phase. I'm paraphrasing, so stop me
Yeah.
if there's anything that's incorrect about this. And then there became this point where you're like, wait, you aren't really doing it for me, right? And you just didn't know how to communicate so that he understood how to worship you. And would love for you just to share a little bit about that story, and then how you were able to shift or evolve that in your relationship, because I think so many couples experience this, right? Maybe you're
Yeah.
together for a while, and it's new and exciting at first, and then after a while you're like, okay, kind of old hat, I'm kind of tired getting in a routine. Or at first you're like really excited and maybe you're a little performative, but then after you've been in a relationship for a while, you're like, okay, I'm tired of being performative, and now I want it to be a little more deep and real. So take us through your story of what you experienced and how you were able to shift that through the wonder of worship into deepening your connection and rekindling that flame within your relationship.
Absolutely. Well, I think first and foremost, we were on the brink of divorce. We were like, I'm ready to call this quits. And we had these enlightening conversations of like, do you think we accomplished our soul contracts together, and what you think was missing, and what were the behavioral patterns that we have against each other that are so detrimental to our relationship. And so I I addressed the key one, which was, you don't want to show up for me the way that I want. And I chose to say, okay, I'm rewriting this belief system. And anytime it comes up for me, I'm going to choose the new belief system. So there had to be like, this is the end of what was. This is a choosing anew. There was a whole dissolution and choosing anew. Like, I'm going to be this new person. I want to step into being this person. And he wanted to step into being a new person. So two people who are so committed to each other, wanting to step into a new version of themselves, which meant identifying the belief systems that were really detrimental. For him, it was the words that come out of my mouth are all attack words. And so it was rewriting that, like that. What I was trying to do, right? So many of us women, we try to have our partners see something or understand something or become better. And the words come out critical. And in the critical words, my husband and so many men were perceiving attack and the need to defend and feeling like, I'm not enough. Nothing I ever do for you is enough. Like, how many women have heard that from their partners? And so it was this critical period where I decided that you're right. The way that I choose to communicate to you, even if it's really intelligent, is not landing. Like, it's absolutely not landing. It is super detrimental. I get to choose a different way. And for you, can you believe that from henceforth, all of the words that are coming out of my mouth serve the purpose of growth, of inspiration, of all these things? And if I said it wrong, like, can we have a commitment to be like, I didn't love the way you said that. Can you try it again? And so for us, it really was that. It was about these breaks and these repairs that first started in our communication, right? In our communication, it's so important. And as soon as I started to just shower him with acknowledgments in life, all the little things, all the big things, all the things I could possibly find, I started doing that. And in that, it provided him safety again, because we were both these two people who felt so unsafe to be with each other. And so we reestablished safety first. It was the critical ingredient of a successful relationship and successful marriage, is to establish safety. And so much safety happens through our words.
Yeah, and what I love that you did was you really brought worship into your words. Like, I'm going to worship you with my words. And what if we reframed in our relationships that single thing? Like, the words I speak are going to be words of worship and praise, rather than words of criticism and doubt or fear or whatever that is. So I love that you did that. And you brought this up before, but just a note about that. It's like, what we focus on grows.
Yeah.
So if we're focusing on the things that our partner's doing wrong, then that's just going to grow, right? It's almost like we're feeding that monster. But if we focus on the things that they're doing right, and we're worshiping the things that make us feel good, or we're celebrating their wins, or we're acknowledging the things that they do right, now that's what's going to grow. And there was something I heard a while ago. There was a professor speaking, and he was a professor of, like, they think family and economics or something. He said he'd been all over the world. And he said in all cultures, he found one thing to be true. When you criticize something, their conscience will console them. Meaning that they'll get defensive, right? Well, they don't know me. They don't understand what I'm going through, all these things. But when we compliment somebody, their conscience will compel them. Their conscience will compel them to do more of whatever we're complimenting them with. So I just want to bring that up, because as we're talking about worship, I think so often people think about just like worship of the body, right? And we brought this up also when you were talking about self-worship, but the worship of words and energy and intention is so important in relationships. So anyway, I do love that. I love what you're saying. So you started worshiping him with your words, and then what did he do, or what was the shift on his end?
Well, I feel like it's also important to say that it is worship through words, but it's not scapegoating, it's not brushing anything under the rug. It's choosing to use those words of affirmation first and then lead into your new desire. So for every complaint, there's a request, right? For every complaint, there's a request. So how do I have this complaint and choose to make a request in the words that are going to land for him? And so it really was about dialing in onto what is my desire and how specific can I be about this desire? Because men need to have attainable goals. Like if I'm saying I want these worship experiences, well, how often do I want these worship experiences? How long do I want them to last? What is the expectation of him? And even like, well, I don't even know what that means. What's a worship session? Like, walk me through a worship session. Like, take them through a visualization experience of like what that would be like for you. Because every woman's a little bit different. And what I found in working with women and uncovering these conversations is that so many of them will say, nobody's asked me that question. I've never thought about it. Nobody's asked me that question. If there was an order of operations, like every woman has a bed mass, and for your optimal sexual experience or your optimal worship experience, how would it start? What would be the second step, the third step? Like in your creative space, not to say that it has to be like this every single time, but until you dare to dream, like he won't know. And you start from there. You start from the dream. What does the dream look like? And then you inspire your partner through that dream. You visualize this together. You get hot and bothered, and then maybe it leads straight to it. And that was kind of what it was about. So we actually committed to having these journeys. And for us, because there was so much energy around our own bed and our home, we were like, okay, we're going to do these hotel experiences. And we're going to do these hotel experiences. And we do, especially at the beginning, we dropped in with a little bit of psychedelics, because when there's so much resistance, to drop into a psychedelic, to allow for the heart expansion of a true connection in there, allows you to really witness each other in a place of full love and full receivership and full surrender, with way less criticism and way less fears and all of that. So that's how we started. And then eventually, as we grew, he started to do his own research and ChatGPT different possibilities. And like, as things started getting excited, it stopped being even in my wheelhouse to ask. It just started being in his wheelhouse of like, ooh, let's try this. And then, ooh, let's try that. Now that I understand your general bed math, like I can get creative.
Yeah. And I love that, because, and I love this term bed map, something Gerald and I have taught in a lot of our couples things. And I know you've experienced this, is this love map. And it's the idea of what are 10 things, like write down 10 things that your partner did that made you feel most loved, and then share that with them. because it doesn't have to be a guessing game, right? It's like, hey, when you did this, I felt really loved. And then they can be like, oh, cool, I can do that again, right? But I love this idea of a bed map because of what you're like, what I heard and what you were saying. And I think this is true. And I've been there before is in the past is that we're unsatisfied. All we know is that it's not doing it for us in the bedroom anymore, but we don't think about what it would actually take for us to feel fully worshiped and to actually sit down and think about that and write like what would be your dream scenario and share that with your partner. It takes the guessing work out of it and it sets them up for success and sets you up for success because then you can have that experience together. So I really love that. And what I love about this too, I'm just noticing this like whole journey, which is when you worship yourself, you really start to learn and discover like what you like, what makes you feel good in your body. And once you know what feels good in your body, then you can share that with your partner. Then you can start designing what would my ultimate love-making experience look like. And another thing I really love that you said in there is you spiced it up or you changed the environment because there were so many old stories or old patterning around your old environment. And so you said, okay, well, let's create a new environment. Let's create a blank slate where we can rewrite and create our dream experience, create this epic worship session in this new setting. Because as you mentioned at the beginning, setting are so important to be able to really surrender and feel safe and experience something new. So that's beautiful. And so as you started to experience these worship sessions with your partner, what happened in your relationship? Like, how did that show up for you in other areas?
Immediate shift in all aspects of my life. I kid you not. Immediate shift in my worthiness conversation and my self-love conversation, because at some point in relationships, when we feel like our partners aren't showing up for us, we make it mean something about ourselves. You know, our value decreases, our self-worth decreases, and then it's this almost dangerous loop of like, how can I be enough like if I'm not enough for my husband? You know, like, or how can I be enough if this person who says he loves me just doesn't want to show me love in this way? And so immediately it started reprogramming all of those belief systems. And now, you know, of course, I was also doing my own work to really support. I wasn't just reliant on my husband to support me in changing this narrative, of course, but right away my creative centers just started to explode, right? Because when we're doing this work, we're really activating the sacral, and then suddenly new ideas are coming up, and you have this sense of I can do anything, this power that comes over you. And of course for me it was, oh my God, I feel normal again, right? Like the hormones started to stabilize again, and my digestive system started to stabilize again, because everything, my adrenal system, because once you kind of like hit one, they all start to domino effect afterwards. And I mean, some women perhaps haven't experienced the extremities of like the health fluctuations that I have. But for me, it's night and day that I can experience like, wow, this experience of chronic fatigue constantly to like this new experience. And actually, I want to go into that because we've just touched on it barely, but how does the science work behind all of this? So in regards to our hormones, there's something called the hormone hierarchy. And at the top of this hormone pyramid hierarchy is oxytocin. So we're cyclical beings. In the first part of our cycle, in the follicular phase of our cycle, that is when we are intentionally trying to create estrogen. Estrogen cannot be built in a high cortisol environment. Oxytocin will squash cortisol. So if you're an estrogen dominant woman, so your estrogen is through the roof and your progesterone is really low, doing body worship or doing these types of worship experiences, what it's doing is it's flooding your body with all of this oxytocin, which is lowering your cortisol levels, which actually is preventing you from making more estrogen. So you're starting to balance down, you're bringing down your estrogen and estrogen dominance. And then you go through your ovulation, which all of the hormones are firing at full tilt, you know? And then you go into your luteal cycle. And the point of luteal is to create progesterone. if your progesterone doesn't rise, you cannot get pregnant. You are going to have all of these side effects. For me, the worst one that I could say out, that I could say out loud is I used to be riddled with hormonal acne on my throat for 2 or 3 years. And I tried all the things and I really wasn't understanding that it was my progesterone until much later. And I used a device called Inito, where I could literally see my hormones every single day. I didn't use them as Inito suggested just for ovulation because it's an app to try to get pregnant. I was using it the whole month to try to just see the whole hormonal curve. And I'm like, wow, my progesterone never rises. If it's not rising, these are all the situations that could be occurring as a side effect of that. And so with the body worship, I flooded my body with all this oxytocin, which squashed all my cortisol, which allowed me to create progesterone. So now this thing is happening where I'm taking my estrogen dominance and my extremely low progesterone and going and doing this and leveling them out. So I'm leveling out my progesterone and my estrogen. And that's where I really get this homeostatic experience of like, wow, vitality and aliveness. And my hormones are doing the thing that they're supposed to be doing.
Well, for years, people, if somebody asked me like, why do you look so good? Or how do you stay looking so young or something like that? I would just jokingly say, oh, orgasms, but it's true. I think
so true.
Part of my intuition was telling me like, this is true. This can actually happen. And isn't it amazing that the thing that makes us feel so good makes us feel so good?
Yeah.
I mean, literally, we could take medication and have all these like weird side effects, or we could just have an orgasm. I mean, I choose the orgasm. Okay, let's go. Like,
I mean, why would God have created a clitoris that has no other purpose than to give us this extreme pleasure? It's because we as women, our bodies and our whole systems operate off of pleasure. The less pleasure you have in your life, the less homeostasis you're going to experience in your physical body. And so the more pleasure that we're actually bringing in, the more oxytocin we're feeding our body self-heals. We're all self-healing, the human body is self-healing. If you give it the right things, it will fix itself. And so oxytocin is one of those easy things that like if your body enough of it, it will start to fix itself. It will support in the fixing of your adrenals. It will support in the fixing of, the hormones and your mental state, right? How much of depression, how much of all these different things are really just imbalanced hormones or inflammation in the brain. Oxytocin also reduces inflammation. And so we're like, well, you have this natural anti-inflammatory.
Yeah, well, and I think this has another benefit too. I mean, it's empowering to think of us being able to regulate our own bodies in that way, but also in partnership. I mean, of course, your partner wants to be your hero in helping you feel better and be happier and have less inflammation. I mean, I'm just going to tell Gerald, hey, you want to help me feel healthier? Let's just, have an orgasm tonight. I don't know.
You guys have that locked in, but for the rest of the men out there, it really is like, it's something I've started calling sexual cycle syncing. It's like, oh, if your woman is experiencing signs of PMS, you should have a mental thing go off in your brain that says, oh, she doesn't have enough oxytocin. She's not creating enough progesterone. Let me give her a worship session so that she could create more progesterone and like squash the PMS symptoms. Cause like we don't have to have PMS symptoms. We don't have to have mood swings. We don't have to have these things. We can just actually go through life feeling kind of more of a consistency throughout the month. Like men are so great because they're consistent. They work on 24-hour cycles and they feel this consistency day in, day out, except for if they're sick or something like that. Whereas we on like our moon cycle, 28-day cycles, sometimes the differences in our mood can be so vast. But those vastness is because of the divide in our hormones. And as we start to balance the hormones, we really experience more balance throughout the whole 28 days. And so
I love that. And this is like a continued conversation in our relationship and something that I think, I've really helped train Gerald well in. And I'm like, if I'm throwing a fit, if I'm stuck in a loop, the best thing you can do is grab me and hug me, push me up against the wall and start making out with me. So
Yeah.
this is gonna bring me back into regulation. May be different for other people, but our relationship, I told him, you have permission to throw me over your back, carry me upstairs, lay me on the bed and be like, all right, I'm in charge, surrender. Because for me, I
Yeah.
really, really like that. That's a key
Well,
in
you bring up something actually super important as well. When we say oxytocin, it really is oxytocin. It doesn't have to be a full worship experience every single time or every single day where it starts to become like a daunting task or something like that, which it shouldn't be. If you're doing worship correctly, like if you're looking at your person's body and your partner's body and you're thinking about how much love and devotion you have for them, it should never feel like a chore.
Mhm.
But in smaller instances, those kisses, those hugs, those touches, those moments of embrace, those are little oxytocin drips. And so the more little oxytocin drips you can give your woman throughout the day is fantastic. When I say about this worship experience, it's because life sometimes happens to us, and I, with my need to stabilize my hormones the way that I do need to, sometimes I just need to flood myself with that oxytocin. Like, let's go. I want to be overwhelmed with the oxytocin. You could do it with puppies, right? Like, if you're a lover of puppies, like, go do some puppy yoga. You're going to be flooded with oxytocin. The point really is oxytocin. My preferred methodology of delivery and receiving oxytocin is erotic worship.
Yes, I'm right there with you on that. And one thing that I found helpful, Gerald and I kind of naturally and organically had beautiful experiences in our lovemaking. But after we had our worship session and I started being more intentional about this, one of the things that I found that I really love is we actually set aside intentional worship days, and we'll
Mhm.
have different days for each of us. So what I mean by that is I think there's something in us that feels like, oh, if I receive, now I have to give. But there was something about me being like, okay, it's my day to be worshiped. And so Gerald would set up the whole experience, and it was really hard to get into this of being
Mhm.
like, oh, I don't need to be performative. I don't need to be giving pleasure. My only job in this experience is to be worshiped and receive pleasure. And one thing that helped me do that was to have separate days. So this is my day to be worshiped, and setting aside the time. And there's something also so beautiful about actually setting aside time and being very intentional about it. And Gerald setting up the galaxy lights and the candles and the music and knowing that he's doing that for me. And then picking a completely different day for him to be worshiped, because and I think it was actually harder for him to
Yeah.
receive, because we're naturally, if there's a like sub dom or some dynamic, I'm like 99% sub,
Yes.
like to be the one receiving. But it was so important in our relationship dynamic for him actually to be the one that now was like, okay, I'm going to receive and I'm going to give, I'm going to be the one giving to him. And this was really profound in our relationship, and the shift of him actually being and feeling safe enough and trusting enough to surrender into me giving to him. And although it's still in a natural, sexual experience, I like to be the one receiving and he likes to be the one giving. It was a complete breakthrough in our relationship to have him be the one that's like, I'm just going to receive right now. And I feel no pressure in having to make you feel pleasure. I'm just going to be the one receiving it. So I don't know if there's anything you want to speak to around
Yeah.
that. That
I
was
do. I love that you bring that up for multiple reasons. One, the having a separate day for each partner. So much of the woman, mindset is that if I'm receiving, I have to give back. And so it's this conversation that like, oh my God, no, I just fully deserve to receive, and how we can separate that. And then from the other perspective, also, men also deserve to just fully receive without this need that he has to perform or that he has to give back. And you're right, like what it can do for the masculine, because the masculine also deserves to be worshiped. And the worship might look a little bit different based on the pressure, really. That's the difference in foundationally is a lot of men maybe don't love the super soft and the super sensual. Perhaps they like a little bit more firm pressure. Whereas for us women, oftentimes it's like the softer, the better. If you think you're going soft, go softer. And so that's like a key difference. But once you hone into like what your masculine really loves, there is no better way of depicting and expressing to him your just the level of love you have for them than doing this whole body worship experience for him as well, because it's a massage, it's using words of affirmation, it's body to body contact, it's all of these sexy things that he's gonna love and enjoy and just enjoy watching, right? Like so much of the masculine and the feminine experience is like, who doesn't love to watch? And
Yeah.
so I think it's a beautiful thing that you're bringing up there. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things I love about this too is it really does create an opportunity for you to focus on your partner and learn about them. What do they like? One of the games that I love, love, love to play, and somebody taught this to me years ago, was the either or game. Like,
Mhm.
starting off with firmer pressure and say, okay, which do you like better, this or, and then do the lighter pressure, this. And it's almost like the eye doctor test, like which one's
Yep.
better, A or B,
I
one
know
or
for
two.
you.
And then, okay, they say, well, yeah, I like number one, the firmer pressure better. And so do you like firmer pressure here on your shoulders or here on your back? And then they're like, oh, I like both, or, I like it, more on my shoulders right now. And it's really just a way to discover without saying, no, I don't like that, or yes, I do like that. Because every no, I feel like feels like a rejection. It's like,
Mhm.
this is the one I like better. Let's do more of that. This is the area that's erotic or that I feel turned on. Let's do more of that. So I think that's fun. And I've learned so much about Gerald just by putting him on the worship, altar, which is our bed,
Wow.
and saying, which do you like better? So there's so much. And I mean, we could talk about this forever. We're actually getting close to time and it's getting dark in here. So the sun's going down where I am. So I'm going to lose light soon. But I want to kind of wrap this up just by saying you do phenomenal work. I've experienced it personally myself. You work with women specifically to help them understand what it feels like to be worshiped, but then also how they can take that home into their relationship. You work with couples, teaching them the wonder of worship and how to bring this into their relationship in all aspects. And I know you've seen phenomenal results from the couples that you've worked with. So if there's somebody's listening and they want to find out more about this, something, and perhaps you're listening, if you heard something on here, it really awakened something within you. Like you want to experience this deeper wonder of worship, either with yourself or within your relationship and your partner. And love, they want to know more about this. How can they get a hold of you?
I'm actively responsive on Instagram and messaging. So please follow me on Instagram and send me a quick hello. It is Kasia, spelled Kasia, Love Li, Li. So yes, please follow me there. And absolutely, I can provide you with AB games, which is, you can Google them as well, which is the either or conversations, and really help with your communication and coaching, as well as I've had a lot of male clients who are like, I don't even know what you mean when you say go slow. So I have literally, been in the ear and like, okay, we're going to do a worship session that isn't orgasmically charged. It's about learning the body. And I'm going to walk you through the whole journey. So you just have to do what I say. And so if that's something that interests you because you're like, I really don't know what she keeps saying and I don't know about the ideas and oh, I'm just overwhelmed, like I can help you in that way. And so I love doing this work, whether it's on Zoom or in person or a whole weekend where we really uncover all of the things that are working and not working and what do you get to add. It's a lot of asking, what do you want? And let me help you get it.
Yeah, definitely follow Kasia Love Li on Instagram. And I forgot to mention, I had Kasia come in and speak to one of our Sacred Union and Sex Magic couples classes. You end up working with some of the couples. They just raved about you as well. So I promise you, if this is calling to you and you want to find out more, you choose to work with love, it will be transformative for yourself and your relationship. So we'll put all this down in the show notes. But meanwhile, love, thank you so much for being here on the show. Thank you for doing the work yourself, for being able to really discover and activate those parts of you, both personally and in your relationship, and then bringing this to us. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much, Mayah Rose. Loving you.
Thank you, legendary explorers, for joining us on this cosmic journey today.
Your curiosity fuels our exploration of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
If you're hungry for more, dive into our website and connect with us on social media. All the links are in the show notes.
And stay tuned for our next mind-expanding episode. We can't wait to talk to you again in our next adventure.
Until then, remember, this is your life. So,
make it legendary.